So here we are. And our live stream has started. Welcome, Jaak Madison from EKRE, the National Conservative Party of Estonia. It's a pleasure to have you here as a guest. You're in Brussels now, in the European Parliament, or next to the European Parliament, since you're elected as an MEP. And I'm Gustav Kasselstrand, party leader for Alternative for Sweden. So we'll do this mostly in English, but for our Swedish-speaking viewers, I'll switch to Swedish quickly. För du talar väldigt bra svenska, Jaak. Du har hållit ett tal på flytande svenska för Alternativ för Sverige i Köpenhamn. Berätta lite kort. Hur kommer det sig att du kan så bra svenska?
God kväll för alla. Jag är jättetrevligt att Gustav ringde mig och frågade att ska vi ha en möjlighet att prata om Estonia på live här. Tyvärr, jag är inte i Bryssel. Jag är i Bryssel som att det är inte som finaste stad i världen. Ganska mycket som en multikultur och all andra fina saker här som finns. Om när du förstår det vad jag menar. Om det svenska språket, jag talar nu inte så mycket bra. Därför att jag använder det inte varje dag eller inte varje månad. Därför att jag har inte så många svenska vänner här i parlament. Också alla, vi har inga svenskar tyvärr i vår politiska grupp i identitet och demokrati. Som var jag är. Jag är tillsammans med finskorna, danskorna. Men tyvärr inte svenskorna. Jag hoppas jättemycket att 2024 när vi ska ha igenval i Europeiska parlament att vi ska ha Gustav här eller några andra från Sverige, att vi ska ha någon svensk språk också i gruppen här, att jag kan praktisera lite mer. Men jag var student i Estland i svensk skolan för 1 år, då jag var i Finland i en svensk stad, Hangö, för 1 år som en växelstuderande, och då jag jobbade 4 eller 5 år på kryssningsbåtarna mellan Finland, Sverige och Estland. Så därför att det går mig ihåg någonting åtminstone, men i alla fall när du måste tala jättespecifika sakerna, då bara du vet inte som är exakt ord vad du måste använda. Så därför att på engelska det är lite lättare. Så att jag är jätteledsen att jag kan inte prata alltid på svenska. Men vi har också ganska många estländer som kollar på det chatt här. Så att kanske det är lite bättre också för dem. Att de förstår lite mer vad vi talar här.
Precis. Ja, very impressive, Jaak, and it was a great pleasure to have you speaking in Swedish also during our election campaign kickoff in Copenhagen during 2019. So we'll switch back to English, but I think many of our Swedish-speaking viewers really appreciate that you took this time to introduce yourself in Swedish. And our two countries, Estonia and Sweden, always have a very tight bond, and historically we have a lot in common culturally and in many other respects. So later on we will go into the more political discussion, but let's just conclude that we are neighbors and friends, and we have been that historically as well.
That's very true, because one of the best universities in Nordic eastern part of Europe is from Tartu, and it was made 1632 under the Swedish time rule by Gustav II. So in this area of the Europe, it was like the very big thing for everyone, and now it's one of the most top universities also in the world, in top 300 or something. So that's why historically we have very deep connections with Sweden and Swedish people, and of course, but we are on the same time very sad about the Swedish people, what's happening there. And if we see like Malmö or Rinkeby or some other places and ghettos, then it feels that, well, Swedish people have helped a lot in history, their neighbors and other nations, and it feels now that they need the help from the others.
We do need your help. Any help is appreciated, and especially from Estonia. So you're much welcome to our election campaign in 2 years. And also a quick question here. Sweden used to rule Estonia for 100 years, and we do not want to rule Estonia again because it will only mean more multiculturalism and political correctness now. So this is not our will today. But what's the view in Estonia on the Swedish time during these 100 years? As far as I understand, it's considered a little bit better than many other historical times in Estonia. But please tell me.
It's like, as always, the history is never black and white. It's like the gray, and there you can find always like some positive and negative aspects and things. But if you're comparing like the rules, what we have had, like in history by Russia, Poland, Denmark, Sweden, then of course I think 99% of the Estonian population agrees in common sense that the Swedish time on the end of the 16th century and the beginning of the 17th century, it was the most peaceful time, and it was time for the progress. So, and of course, I think that's one of the reasons why historically the Estonian people have been like very, very looking forward to cooperate together with Sweden. Of course, but on the same time, when you're hoping too much for your old friends from the 17th century, then you can be also cheated a bit because politicians are not always very honest persons, as we know very well. So that's why it's like very multiple complex question. But if you're looking like 200-300 years ago, what's happening, then of course, absolutely, I think like the Swedish time was one of the most peaceful time in Estonian history when we're looking at other regimes what we have had.
Okay, that's very interesting for many of the Swedes here to hear from you, I believe. So you're a member of the European Parliament. You were elected in the last European election, right after you spoke for us during our election campaign. How many MEPs does Estonia have as a nation?
We had 6 before Brexit. And now after Brexit, we got 1 seat more. So we have 7 MEPs. I think only Malta has less MEPs, 6, I think. So it means that there are not very much here. Of course, all the big countries like Germany, France, and all the very EU progressive persons are saying that it's very honest that some country has 7 seats and Germans have about 85 or 90 seats, because the difference of the country is, of course, like very obvious. But on the same time, of course, this European Parliament is like the typical federalized parliament, what you have normally in one state. So because we have the majority votes here, if you have like in some voting on some new directive or some new proposal from the European Commission, and you got at least like 1 vote more for the majority, then it's agreed. But of course, you understand like about 150-60 votes in the European Parliament comes from 2 countries, France and Germany. So it's absolutely very clear that the interest of some countries are pushed more forward. And then when you have 7 MEPs, and especially of those 7 MEPs, you have 2 MEPs in the Socialist group who are absolutely EU federalists. Then you have 3 MEPs in the Renew group, what are EU liberal group. And then you have only 1 in EPP, what is like not fish, not meat. It depends on the day, how they are voting. So, and then you have only 1 like in the ID group, what is the most national conservative group. Then you can do like the speeches here, and you can make some statements and the press releases and opinion articles, but you don't change the course of the EU in one day, obviously.
Yeah, that's a very realistic approach. But it's very interesting with identity and democracy, because your colleagues there are the Danish People's Party, the Finns Party, the Sannfinländarna, and a few other parties, prominent parties such as Rassemblement National in France and so on. But no Swedish party there yet. But as you said before, we will do our very best in our next election campaign to take part in this group, so that Sweden has a true patriotic nationalistic party to represent our nation also in the European Parliament. But is there any talks with, for example, the Sweden Democrats, or have you had any contacts with any Swedish political party in the European Parliament whatsoever?
Only with Swedish Democrats. So because even if they are in Sweden called right-wing radicals, xenophobics, racist, and whatever else, but when I'm looking at statements, what they are doing and saying, it doesn't feel at all like some kind of the right-wing radicals. They are trying to be very mainstream party, to be polite for everyone, and to be likable for the media. So even here, they are absolutely, very mainstream party, but on the same time, they are, of course, more right-wing than most of the parties in the European Parliament. And they are in the ECR group, European Conservatives and Reformists, where the leading party is Polish PiS, the power party from Poland. And they have also, in their group, they have also Spanish Vox, which is also an absolutely fine party. And we have some discussions sometimes together, and some other small parties. But they are the ECR. So sometimes if we see they have 3 MEPs from Swedish Democrats, Charlie Weimars, who can say absolutely Eurosceptical conservative person, and we have very good discussions sometimes all together. And also the blonde lady, I can't remember the name now. The blonde lady from Swedish Democrats.
What's her name again?
She's really the ID.
Jessica Stegrud, I believe.
Just that.
Yeah.
So
I believe she's much more radical than she officially would tell anyone, because she would fear being kicked out of the Sweden Democrats. So she has to stick to the party line. But I can have the gut feeling that she's much more radical. But
if she has a speech in the parliament, in a plenary, she's very tough. She's going to very concrete things and just crashing into the EU and European Commission. So at least she's not very afraid of the party or about the main line or mainstream line in the party. So with those Swedish, we have some contacts. So at least when you see them once or twice per month, then you can practice some Swedish at least.
Yeah. But that's good. That's good, and we'll make sure you're able to practice even more Swedish after the next election. But okay, super, very interesting to hear, and we might go into some EU discussions later on, especially concerning the Corona fund that the EU is kind of pushing forward now with 750 billion euro. But let's focus on that a bit later. I will also open up for questions mostly during the latter end of this discussion, and they will pop up in this window. But first of all, let's get started about the Estonia discussion, the ship wreckage in 1994, which is a national tragedy in Estonia and in Sweden, since Swedes and Estonians were the two nationalities which had the most people lost and dead in this catastrophe. So this is very much a concern for our two nations. And it has now been 26 years since this wreckage, but this has been put up to the debate again after a documentary broadcast last week by Swedish documentary filmer Henrik Evertsson. And Henrik Evertsson has in the first episodes kind of summarized what's happened with Estonia and all the strange things that has happened that have happened also afterwards, with politicians trying to cover up different investigations, changing their mind rapidly and so on. But in the last episode, he was able to show that there is a hole in Estonia which was not known, or at least not stated in the official investigation that the Swedish state completed together with the Estonian and the Finnish state in 1997. So it has really created a lot of controversy in Sweden, and I'm sure also in Estonia. And that's why we're having this discussion tonight, with so many people watching now live, since this is really a thing that concerns people all over Sweden and Estonia. So I'll ask you, Jaak, to summarize the Estonian debate on a general level after this was revealed, and also please tell us a lot about how your country has kind of treated this situation, and also historically the last 25 years has Estonia been a big issue, a big topic in the debate, or what's really going on in your country? Because in Sweden we almost feel like we're in the DDR. We have no clue whatsoever what happens in our neighboring countries if we don't look at the news on our own. So most Swedes typically have no idea how the Estonian debate has been.
Mm-hmm. It was a huge drama in the media now about 1 week ago. I think it was 1st of October when it was published officially that they have found a new hole in the ship MSS Estonia. And actually the rumors came about a week before that, because the Prime Minister of Estonia, Jüri Ratas, he had an official meeting with Swedish Prime Minister, Stefan Löfven, and also with a Finnish Prime Minister, and they went together to Stockholm. And so there's some kind of rumors came out that one of the reasons why they had a meeting there was about the new findings on Estonia. Thanks for this documentary movie. Officially in the beginning, Mr. Prime Minister didn't say anything to the media, and it was like the typical answers that yeah, we had discussion about the COVID-19, about the cooperation between two countries. We have always had some kind of the meetings like this kind. But of course, when it was a direct question that did you just discuss also about Estonia, there were no answer. So everybody understood directly, okay, something's coming up. When it came out directly, then it was in the media, of course, like the big shock, and at least it was like a huge pressure for the government to have the clear statement, what we're gonna do now next. And as we are also in the government, our party, as I didn't explain maybe too well in the beginning, my party is also from last year in the government. We have in the government 3 parties. So it's our party, Conservative People's Party of Estonia, and then we have Pro Patria. They are the smallest partner, so-called Conservative Party, but they have lost most of their voters to our party, and they are in the EPP group in European Parliament. So they are more liberal Conservative Party, and then the leading party is the Prime Minister Party, Centre Party. And of course, it was the very huge pressure for sure for the government to have the very clear steps what to take now next. And they say it directly out, there is no clue. We have to have new investigation for that to find out why there is a hole, how it can be happened. Was it the reason for the catastrophe, or was it after the wreck were sinking down to the sea? And after that, of course, it was the discussions in the media that how the Sweden and Finland will react for that. Finland has been very quiet, so no very official news from Finland, because they are not directly connected with that. They were not owners of the ship, and they didn't have very many passengers on the ship. So they are the passive part of this triangle what we have between 3 countries. And last week, the Swedish prosecutor said officially out that no, it's not possible to go down to the ship because it will break the peace treatment between the countries who have signed to not go there down to protect the peace of the victims. Well, I have my own opinion about that, and I know that many ministers in our government share my opinion that it's absolutely insane. Well, if you have any kind of risk or chance for a mass murder, then you don't protect the victim with a peace treatment and sign some contract that we will not investigate the mass murder. What can happen. So you will take the body out even the latest before from the ground, and you will have the new investigation of the body to find out the proofs and the facts. Who made a mass murder? Who's the responsible for that? So that's why those voices were not very surprising from the prosecutor in Sweden. Then also it was reaction. What was also published in Estonian media was from Carl Bildt, who was the Prime Minister of Sweden, 1994 and 95. No, not 95. Then you had like the new Prime Minister directly after the catastrophe, Ingvar
Carlsson.
Yeah. But Carl Bildt was at this time on the catastrophe time Prime Minister, and so finally Carl Bildt made a statement in Twitter that of course there's need for a new investigation to find out the background of this hole in the ship, but there is no doubt that we have all the proofs in the final report from 1997, and we know like the facts why the catastrophe happened. So, and it shows pretty much that, okay, you have so many new proofs, what will show the catastrophe in a new light, and you say with a high energy that no, there is no doubt that what was the reason. We have it like in the final report from 23 years ago.
It's very strange. I have to comment here, because the hole was not known in this official report, but now exactly. The hole is known. And still they claim that the official report from 1997 is totally accurate and correct, and there's no need to ask anything or criticize it. So it's very strange that they are kind of totally ignoring the fact that there is a new finding on this case.
And the funny fact is that how, like the first 2-3 days, also in Estonian media, it was very like on the line that we should have a new investigation. We have to go down to the ship now to find the new proofs. And then after those 2-3 days, and even like today and yesterday, they are publishing like the news where some so-called experts about the ships, or like who are the professors in the universities, who are coming out with a view that no, it's pretty sure that actually the reason for the new hole was some stone. So it's just it wasn't the reason of the catastrophe, but when the ship went down to the sea, about 80 meters, then of course it was like some big stones in the bottom of the sea, and that was the reason why it was crushed to the stone. And well, it feels like more than strange, because if those experts on the same time says that we have everything in the final report from 1997 and all the facts are therein, and there is no doubt that the main reason for the ship catastrophe was that the first part of the ship were crushed away thanks for the too high speed of the ship, so it was responsible for the seamen who wants to be on the time to arrive to Stockholm in the morning. It was like some kind of slogan for the Estlands, the company what was shared between Sweden and Estonia, that we will never be too late, we will be on the time, it doesn't matter which kind of weather we have. So that's why they were hurrying too fast on the stormy sea, and the ship was in a bad condition. So that's why the first part of the ship were just cracked down, and it took also the ramp what holds the water away, it took it also down, and that was the reason for the catastrophe. But in the final report in 1997, it's also said that the bottom of the sea is soft. There is no stones, there is nothing.
It's only mud, they say.
Yeah, it says at least 5 meters, there is nothing, it's soft bottom. Okay, so if you're now saying that the reason for the new hole was stone, so it means that you have some like fake news or like the wrong facts in the final report, but says that there are no stones. So and of course now you can find also stones, because 1995 the Swedish government decided, you know, like they were pushing forward to put the big sarcophage over the wreck, about 2 meters wreck, to protect the peace of the victims. At least all relatives of the victims were absolutely against for that, so they stopped this idea, but they already had possibility to put like their tons of the stones and the material over the ship. So now, of course, you can find a lot of stones in the bottom of the sea, because it's absolutely like 100% fact that the Swedish side, they were putting like the massive of the stones.
10,000 tons of crushed stone they dropped there.
To prepare to finalize the idea of the sarcophage, so they needed to do it, but it was stopped on the halfway. So now it's like in the media, it feels like the problem like in the media is that they doesn't like, of course, our party. So it's like the most terrible party, right-wing party, what is more Eurosceptical and too nationalist. So, and now they're like in a problem, because if you have the party in the government, what is also pushing more the new investigation to find the new facts to go down to the ship, and then how you can erect in the media. Okay, should we like choose like this side where this party is pushing forward the new investigation, or should we be again just against for this party because we don't like this party? So it means that we should like choose the other side, where they are saying that there is no point like to have the huge investigation or took the ship down out of the sea, because it was also like one of the ideas what our Minister of Interior Affairs, Mart Helme, the former chair of the party, now the new chairman is his son. So, but Minister of Interior Affairs came out with the idea a week ago, something in one radio show what they have with the Minister of Financial Affairs, who's the chairman of the party. So actually, like the main thing what we should do is actually like to take the ship out of the sea, to dig it up, because then you have absolutely all the proofs. Then you can have an investigation to see absolutely around what has happened like with the ship. You can make to take the proofs to find some kind of the proofs of some bomb explosion. You can go to the car deck. You can see like what is the load of the cars, what is like the things what are like it was loaded to the car deck on the ship, and then you can take also out like all the victims and to give them back actually to their relatives, and then to find finally the peace for the relatives who are just still thinking now, okay, that where I should go like on 28th of September every year, where should I put my flowers, where should I put my candle, because they are like 80 meters under the sea. But of course, then it was reacted directly also in the media that in some experts are saying that no, there is no point for that. We have all the resources, technical resources today to have like investigation only with technical things, to have an overlook of that. So, but at least finally, it was now yesterday, Tuesday morning, they had a government meeting when it was on the table, the new investigation, and the decision was that Estonia was proposing the cooperation for Finland and Sweden officially to have together the new investigation, and they made a proposal that Finland and Sweden will also propose one head of the investigation from their side who's responsible for that, and also to take to the investigation all the relatives of the victims or the organizations who are from the victim side, and also like the experts, and to have the big group as enough for the new investigation, that there is no risk that somebody will hide something or just to make some kind of fake investigation. And now they're waiting for the answer from the Swedish and the Finnish side, but at least the official statement is that what they did directly in the beginning week ago, that as the Estonian ship was under Estonian flag, so it's like the Estonian territory, and it's on the international waters, so it's like all the rights are to go forward with investigation even alone, because 1994-5, of course, it was like the very difficult times when actually Estonia didn't have any resources, any technical possibilities to do something alone, and actually didn't have anything. So and the Swedish side proposed that the head of the investigation team should be like the Estonian, because it was under Estonian flag. So it was Mr. Andi Meister, who's unfortunately dead now, and who have also written many books about Estonia with the proofs and facts what are not put into the final report. But he was the head of this investigation team, and of course it feels more. It was like the reason just that all the resources and techniques came from the Swedish side and Finnish side. But then you can say always finally that, hey, but you were the heads of the investigation team, so everything what is in the final report, you were responsible for that. It was just like the game between the countries, that what we should investigate, what we should film of the shipwreck, how we should go into the ship, what we should take it out. But now, like, the decision is from the government that they are going forward, even if the Swedish government will say that no, we don't accept this idea. We are not accepting the idea to go into the ship, because, like, in Estonian governments, the ideas have been that we have to go in, to go to the captain deck, to find out finally who are there, because in the official report there is no mention that who were on the captain deck on the catastrophe time, which captains, which officers. It's not on the official videos, it's just cut it out. So you have to go there and find out inside of the ship that what you can find, which kind of. So and of course, like, the main problem now officially is this treatment between three countries, and this was signed by the UK, I think also Russia, Latvia, Lithuania, that those citizens of those countries are not allowed to go to the wreck. But I know that they have also ordered some kind of analyze for this construct. That is it part of the international law? Is it possible to just step out of this contract? And well, the knowledge what we have today is that it's not part of the international law, because there are only 3 contract. But the reason for all the other ships is that there are some, cultural heritage, or tons of gold or silver, and you are just protecting those unique things in the wreck, that you're just trying to hold away all the possible just robbers who wants to go there. So, but for Estonia, there is nothing like that, because the only main reason is to protect the victims. And it's like the only one case in the whole world. So that's why, if it's not like very common in the world to use this kind of contracts, it's not part of the international law. And that's why it's pretty easy, like, for one side to just step out and say that no, we will not agree with this contract anymore, because we have a new proofs, we have new facts found, and we have to go forward with investigation. But now it's the time, like, to wait for the answer from the Finland and Sweden, what they are deciding.
So did I understand correctly now that the Estonian government has put forward a proposal that Estonia will be responsible to recover not only the bodies but also the whole ship? Is that your party line, or is it the whole government's proposal now?
It's a government's decision from the beginning, from the 1st or 2nd of October, when it came to the news publicly that they have new facts about the hole on the shipwreck, and it was decided in the beginning. I think it was the cooperation between Finland and Sweden also, very probably, because I think it was one of the main topic what we're discussing between the prime ministers in Stockholm. And I think it was the agreement between the countries that Estonia will be like the head of the investigation, because very clear reason is that it was like under Estonian flag. So officially, if you're looking at international law, it's like some kind of like Estonian territory under the sea in bottom of 80 meters. So and that's why they also published this statement very officially, that Estonia will be like leader for this investigation, but together with Finland and Sweden. And of course, we are just looking forward to have a good cooperation with those countries, because of course they have also victims. Their citizens are on the ship. Estonia was 50. Estlands, the company of Estonia, was owned 50% of the Swedish company. So there are very like reasonable facts why they should be also like involved to the new investigation. But
who will run this investigation? Because many people in Sweden, I've seen also many people asking now in this comment section, what would be a trustworthy, let's say, a trustworthy team of countries leading this investigation? Would it be an international investigation? And how would we make sure to keep the Swedish government as far away as possible from this investigation? Because the Swedish government has only lied for the Swedish people for at least 26 years now. And I mean, a sure thing to have a biased investigation would have to have Sweden on a key position in this investigation.
Well, at least as I'm in the European Parliament, I'm absolutely more free to talk what I think with my own mind.
So we appreciate it.
Yeah, if I would be like the minister, like in the government, then your like ties are very close. Let's say that you can't say anything loudly out. But well, my own opinion, like what I'm feeling is that, of course, like all the governments trying to have normal cooperation with their neighbors, even if they are parties in the government what you don't like personally, because I'm very sure that, I don't know, this prime minister party in Sweden doesn't like very much our party, because we are those guys who have said all the time that, well, if you want to take migrants, go ahead, but forget all those code system. It's your own thing.
Yeah, I have to comment here that after your last election, there were signs that you would have a liberal government at first. So our stupid liberal center party leader Annie Lööf kind of proclaimed that, Estonia gets a liberal government, it's super, and we will have a tolerant Estonia. But then after a few days, you, together with your other conservative parties, proclaimed that we're taking the power. And after that, she didn't comment anything. And I also met Martin Helme 1 year ago in London at the Traditional Britain Group's gathering, and spoke with him. And he said to me that when he met Magdalena Andersson, the Minister of Finance in Sweden, she would call him a right-wing extremist and kind of not want to talk with him at all. Not even during the coffee break, because she was so angry at your party and at your government. So that's very positive news for Swedish nationalists, that our own liberal establishment is very, very much in conflict with you, because it means that you're doing something right, at least. So, so back to the question. The Swedish government is the total opposite of EKRE, I can assure, and. As you say, they will not kind of be your best friends in this investigation if you're involved in it. I'm quite sure of that.
That's the thing, like because like in a diplomatical way, and like to follow like the normal political steps. Of course, they have to propose, like the cooperation with those countries like Sweden, and of course now they have time to answer that. Do they want to? Because I think it's very difficult for them now, for the Swedish government, to decide if you are going forward together with a new investigation where the leader is like the Estonian side, and one part of this side is like very right-wing, radical, terrible party who's not accepting your like liberal, pro-migrant ways. Well, I would like to see the cooperation for the new investigation, that's how we're doing it together. And if you say no, that will not be part of that, then you just giving all the possibilities to this government, what is absolutely like unlikable for you. So I think it's pretty like a terrible situation for the Swedish government just now. But of course, in some case, I would like actually if the Swedish government will decide to have a good cooperation to share like the information, because I'm very sure that the Swedish government has a lot of information. Of course, I think like the average ministers today in the Swedish government doesn't know anything about that, what was happening in 1994, 95. Yeah. But as the Swedish government were saying all the time in the end of the 90s and the beginning of the 20s now, that there were no technical export of the weapons, that there was no proof for that, there was nothing going on. And 2005, it came out all the documents that at least 2 times in September 1994, 14 and 20 of September, it was officially exported from Estonia to Sweden very silently, some secret technical weapons, military weapons. So it means that, okay, if you have said like several years that there was nothing, and so it's now two possible ways. Did Guard build, lied all the time? What is more, I think, more possible? Or did they know anything? So it's the question, well, you don't have any kind of control in Stockholm. What's coming from the former Soviet Union country? What is neighbor for Russia? What is absolutely messed up? Where is no control? What's going on with the nuclear weapons in Ukraine? All the resources, what is broken down after the collapse of the Soviet Union? then I think, well, the average people shouldn't trust very much the government, who doesn't have any kind of control for the security reasons. So there are two possibilities what they're doing.
The first guess is probably the accurate one, that they obviously knew.
So it means
what was
that
going on.
If they're coming next to the table now for the new investigation to have a cooperation, I have no idea actually who will be finally in this commission for the new investigation, which persons, which experts, how many of them will be like from each country. But I really hope that there will be like some tough guy in this expert commission for investigation who will really like try to get information from the Swedish side, because they have a lot of proofs actually. All documents of the investigation, because they owned alone all those video records what was made of the wreck in the end of the September after the catastrophe, and you can see it's also like you can find it also in the YouTube probably. All those official videos is about 100 minutes, but the problem is that about 50 minutes is cut it out. So the places where it's on the right side of the ship, where they found out now this hole, is cut it out. So there is no videos of that. And also they cut it out all the videos on the captain deck. So you can't see anything. That's why there's also nothing like in the final report that what was the situation there, which person you had on the captain deck. So that's why I think they have a lot of information, what will be like very useful for the new investigation. But the problem is that how to get it out, how to make the political pressure for the good cooperation, of course, to share the information, what we have from the both sides, of course, together for the Finland, and then to try to find the facts that what was the real reason of this catastrophe. Because
if Sweden says no, there's no need to investigate this. We believe the official report in 1997 is accurate. Is there any chance that Estonia would do this completely on your own and lead your own investigation and pay for the costs and everything?
Absolutely, because like it's the too big thing for the government, and I will never believe that the government can take like decision that no, we will not have a new investigation only because Swedish government say that no, we don't like this idea. So that's why I think they have to go forward with that, even it will be like the huge political scandal for our party if our party will agree with the idea to not open the new investigation. So that's why they have to go forward. Also, about 3-4 days ago, they had a press conference from the Ministry of Interior Affairs, what I mentioned before already, Mart Helme, and they had a press conference about the resources, what we have in Estonia for the new investigation to go down to the ship. And we have like the private companies who are available even tomorrow. If there's a political will and decision to go down, they're already like ready for tomorrow to go down under the 120-30 meters. And the ship is between 74 and 80 meters. So it depends only about the weather. So the first thing what they need is like the political decision. And now they're waiting, probably they're waiting for the Finnish and the Swedish decision. And after that, it's a question about this commission, who will be there for the new investigation. And then we will like the decision like how much they will spend the money from the budget, which private company will go down, what they have to find, what is like the work, what they have to do. Like,
are they going down with the robots or any other material to kind of record what's happened, or are they sending down divers to the bottom?
It's like the decision. What I know is that they made like in the governments that the new investigation has to be especially to have all the new videos and the records of the ship from all the sides, also like the hidden parts, because now the new technology in 21st century, you can have like the absolutely like you can make like the 3D model of the shipwreck. And to find out all the holes, because now there is like the new information that there is even like the second hole somewhere in the wreck. So actually there can be even more the third or fourth hole in the wreck, to find out like with the technical resources, all those facts, but also like our ministers from our party, like especially Martin Helme, they have mentioned loudly out that we have to go in to the ship. like personally, with the human resources, because inside of the ship you can't find out like all the things what you're searching for. So that's why there is a need also for the personal resources to go in there. And now it's the question about this treatment or like the peace agreement between three countries and how to go out of that. And I think it's now the question for the next weeks, months, what they will decide.
Is there a chance that there will be an investigation? And by that I mean also people being down at the ship, investigating, recording already this autumn. Is that possible?
It's very possible that some investigators unofficially have been there several times. Because like in the end of the 1994 there were not signed yet any peace agreement between the countries. There were no control, especially Estonia didn't have any kind of control. And now it's the question that what the Swedish government, but of course it's now again rumors, we don't have any facts about that. But if you have something to hide, or if you're just blocking investigation and you're coming out with a very like strange ideas about the sarcophag and about this kind of piece of the victims, what is absolutely like the only time in the whole world, in the whole history. So there is pretty clear that there has been like already investigators under the sea next to the wreck. And we don't know exactly that what they have found, what they have taken out from the ship.
It's also official in Sweden that there were people, divers down there identifying the victims, but they were not allowed to bring them up to the surface. And they were asking the Swedish authorities at the place, why wouldn't we bring them up now that we're down here seeing the bodies of the dead? And they just got the answer that you, under no circumstances will you take up these bodies, but you would just leave them there and take some photographs of them. And that was right after the catastrophe. And there was also a case just right before, a few weeks before the law was in effect, that a private investigator who was a relative of one of those who died went there with a team to dive, and this was just before it was forbidden, so it was legal, but he was still hindered to do it by some boat from the Finnish coastal guards who stopped them, even though it was legal. So obviously they wanted to hide something. Exactly what, we don't know, but there have been investigations both from the state and also now by some private teams, such as this one from Henrik Evertsson. But it seems that it's always the private teams or those who are not kind of granted permission by the state that kind of reveals new information about the case, such as the one that Henrik Evertsson did. But I also read that Martin Helme said that if Sweden threatens if Sweden threatens to prosecute Estonian divers, they will not be allowed to do that, because it's totally allowed for Estonian divers to dive in this international area. Martin Helme said that. So that was kind of a declaration of war against the Swedish state. I think it was very, very uplifting to read.
I think it was actually like very clear message that if the prosecutor of Sweden says that there is no possibility to go down to the wreck or to go inside of the wreck, then we should say, yeah, madam, I think you have right for your own opinion, of course, but you can investigate only your own citizens if you want, and if it goes together with the laws. Well, you can now like take to the court the Swedish movie maker who found those new facts, and you can try to harm him. But well, you can't do anything officially like to the other citizens from the other countries. It's the same thing like if the country like who's signed this agreement will say that no, we will not follow that anymore. It's illegal for us for the next investigations. Then well, we we can have some snaps like the Swedish snaps all together, but finally, yeah, if there is a question about like the interest of the investigation and to find out like the facts what are waited for 26 years of all the victims and the relatives, then well, your laws there what are made like for the very questionable reasons, it's your own problem. So but of course, as we always know, Martin Helme is very straight guy very often. So to just so he says very loudly out what he thinks. So I think it's very positive mostly. Sometimes, of course, maybe you have to say something privately to the Swedish colleagues that hey, it's your turn now, like to have a good cooperation with us. Otherwise, maybe we find out some facts and it will be not very positive for you. So.
But one question I have, and I'm going to soon, open up for more questions from the viewers. But one question I have is that one of the most common theories, the one that we spoke about earlier, that some let's say material to which kind of military material that was related to possibly Russian missile program or whatever that was in Estonia after the breakdown of the Soviet Union was transported to Stockholm from Tallinn several times on this ship. And if it's so that the ship that the sinking of the ship was related to this fact that there was illegal sort of military material and equipment on this ship, how come the Estonian government is so open towards investigating this? Is it because you have a totally new government now compared to the government that ruled Estonia back at that time? And does that explain the fact why the Swedish government is still very silent and very scared about going forward in this case? Because Sweden essentially has the same government today as we had in 1994. More or less, it's a globalist government. It's a social democratic government that took over after Carl Bildt, but they are more or less the same interests. So what's the explanation between the radically different opinions from Estonia and Sweden, if there is indeed something to cover up in this affair?
I think like there are maybe 2 or 3 big reasons. The first of all, like like as we know, like for sure there are facts that there were like weapon export from Estonia to Sweden. So it's more possible that the Swedish government had to know it. So they had to involve with that. There have been also rumors that it was actually like meant to be like for the CIA or M16 or the other services like from the foreign countries, and Sweden was just like the transit country. Yeah, it's also very possible, but it couldn't be happen without knowing it from the government. So if it will come out now for the Swedish side that hey, you were responsible for that. And actually, maybe you were responsible for the catastrophe because you were exporting the weapons what Russia tried to stop in every way. So you are the risk that you will go to under the court for the prosecution because you are maybe responsible for at least 852 victims plus those 11 persons who are just now gone and who are actually saved from the catastrophe. And it's also like very interesting topic, like when you have like the video proofs about the saved people and next day they are officially on the dead list. It's only 26 years, so it means that most of the persons of this time from the Swedish government or like who were close to information are still alive. So in 100 years, I think like it will like very easy also for all the countries that came out with information. Yeah, it was like 1994 last century or like 2 centuries ago. It was this kind of like happenings. Yeah, but sorry, what can do anymore? They're all dead. So let's forget it. Today, most of them are alive and they are still connected to with like the power, people in power. In Estonia, at the same time, the governments changed like after 2-3 years. All the time. It was at the beginning of the independence again. And there is only one minister today in our government from the pro-Patria party, from this Isamaa, who was in the EPP group, who was on the same time in the government 1994. He was one of the youngest ministers, or even really the youngest one in all Europe. He was the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Jüri Luik. So there's always, of course, like the question that what he knows, really, what he knows, and he was in the same party together with the Prime Minister from 1994, Mart Laar, who's now in the wheelchair with personal health problems. He had an insult many years ago, like 5-6 years ago. So and they're also alive, and one of those guys are now Minister of Defense, who was the Minister of Foreign Affairs in 1994. So there are only persons like who are really connected with this catastrophe, maybe directly. All the others, like, because I'm more than sure that if we will be like in the opposition today, there will be no like this kind of pressure for the new investigation. Because if the Swedish side is like very soft, we should investigate something. Okay, let's have some new movies and some new videos, but the final report isn't good enough. There are all the facts there, so we know they're like the real reasons, everything. And then after it's like with the young countries and old countries. The young countries are just normally looking up to the older ones, that they are more educated, with more experts, more professional resources, and they are like on the higher level. And that was, of course, the reason for 1994 why there were no like possibility to have a good impact on investigation, because Sweden was a strong, big country in Europe, and Estonia was only 3 years old. We already only like 2 months before the Russian troops and military left Estonia in July 1994. So it was like very obvious reasons why the Estonian government, of course, were looking up to the Swedish government. That's okay, you know better about the things. Today,
Estonia has a bigger self-confidence today as an independent nation, and
I think
forward on your own.
I couldn't really imagine that the Liberal parties, like the Reform Party, who won officially, like the last elections, and why the Swedish ministers were so happy that we're going to have a liberal government in Estonia. They won elections, of course, but they're in the opposition because, well, the parliamentary mathematics is very, very clear. You need 51% in the parliament, not only in the elections. So if you can't form the government, oops. So that's why they're in opposition. But if they would be like in the government together with the Centre Party today, or with the Social Democrats, who are also in the opposition, thanks for God, then I'm absolutely sure that they will not be like brave enough or clever enough to make the political pressure for the new investigation even alone if it's needed. Only today, like our party wasn't even formed on 90s. We were officially formed 2012 from the old Farmers Party, what was also formed from the older party from the 90s. But all active members today in our party, or the ministers or the members of the parliament, have nothing to do with the 1994. So they have no personal contacts, no personal interest, nothing to afraid. So, and of course, it gives the courage to go forward with investigation as an independent country and to protect your own interest, because you have officially in the law your own ship under the Baltic Sea.
Yeah. So thank God that we have a patriotic government now in Estonia at the same time that this finding is revealed. That's very fortunate for anyone who wants to get more information on what happened, because if the Liberal government would have won the election, we probably wouldn't have received any new information whatsoever from the Estonian side, at least. So that's very positive to hear. There are some questions here about classified documents that are secret for 50 years. I'm not 100% sure what they're relating to. Many of the secret documents in Sweden, I believe, are classified even longer. I'm not 100% sure.
It was 75 years, if I remember right.
And it's interesting because when they revealed that military equipment had been transported, there was a new investigation in Sweden in 2004, 2005. And then when he published his investigation, Johan Hirschfeldt, people asked him, okay, can we see the preparatory documents, the material that was kind of the ground for this investigation? And he said, I burned everything that was the prerequisites or the preparatory materials, which is very strange why someone who leads an official state investigation burns everything that leads up to this investigation. So in that sense, many of these documents that you would want to see, at least in Sweden, they have totally disappeared or they have been burnt. There's been very strange strange incidents, to say the least. But how is it in Estonia? Are there classified documents that might be open for the public in the future?
I'm sure there are. I have to control all the facts, like which documents they are classified, and put to the hidden boxes for 25 or 50 years. But normally in Estonia, if there is some classified information, they're putting like for 25 years. I think this is the thing what I have to actually control, because I'm not 100% sure like which documents are classified and which information, because I have to ask you like probably like from our ministers who knows a bit better from the everyday work. But I'm sure there are. And also like when you are talking about these classified materials, just the one idea what I was thinking about just now a minute ago is how even if the governments are saying that no, we can't make it public, it's against the national security or something like that. Okay, the real reason, if you're hiding the facts from the beginning of the 90s, it's more, I think it sounds more like the personal problems for somebody who were involved with this business. But if there is any kind of risk that it was one of the reasons for the catastrophe, where we can call it as for mass murder, where it was like the biggest catastrophe in last 50, 60 years after the Second World War, then it can be part of the mass murder, those documents. And if you're going to the court or finally to the European Court or Human Rights Court, then I think like nobody hasn't tried it yet to do it. That's how to get those documents out like officially, and to make the connection in the court that those documents can be directly involved to the probably maybe like the big catastrophe, what was maybe like the mass murder, or it was like some kind of reason from the Russian side or Russian submarine. But nobody hasn't tried it yet. But I think there are very many relatives, hundreds of persons who have lost their family members, fathers, mothers, and who can be like very interested for those documents. So that's the one point maybe like what you can try to do, because the governments are never very open to come out with information what can damage themselves.
Is there a chance that the Estonian government can today make public documents that have been classified from previous governments in Estonia? Do you have that possibility, and is that a realistic option for you?
It's like, again, like I think it's a political game. I think if there are those kind of classified materials and documents what are classified for 25 or 50 years, then it's possible, but it's always again question about the other parties in the government, how to make the political pressure for them that they will agree with that, and what is the price, what will what is the price what they have to pay for that if there is some damaging information coming out for their parties. Like for Centre Party, there is nothing probably to do, because the Centre Party was even made in 1994. But the Pro Patria party, what has been like last 25 years almost in most of the governments involved inside with their ministers, I think they have the most something to lose. So that's why to unclassify the documents, it means like agreement in the government. But to have agreement in the government, you need a consensus. But to have a consensus, you have to like be on the same agreement with the three parties. So I think that's the biggest problem what can be. But of course, we can hope for that. And of course, like I can always ask from our ministers, what is their opinion?
Do that.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, very interesting. We got a question here from Joachim Isheden. Has anyone from the Estonian government back in 1994, 1997 commented on the documentary?
Only what I've seen is only Mart Laar, who was the prime minister, and also he's shown on this documentary movie where he came directly, I think to the Utöö island where most of the survivors from the ship catastrophe were taken to the hospital there. And he was on a documentary movie together with Carl Bildt. And he commented directly like a few days later, because our chair Martin Helme, Minister of Financial Affairs, he came out with a statement that now is time for Mart Laar to speak it out, everything what he knows, honestly, because you're getting older, you never know how long you live, and you don't want to die with information what will explain a lot of things for the hundreds of people who have lost their relatives and family members. And so he was very tough with this comment that's just now come out and speak honestly. And after that, Mart Laar just commented that no, there is nothing to speak, and it's not very nice and polite to play with the feelings of the victims and the relatives of the victims. So he was just like playing on a card that is too emotional thing, what will just open the hearts again, and it will be like very damaging, and just and so it's like just a typical emotional feeling game. But he didn't comment anything about like the final report from 1997. He just said that yeah, we should have like the new investigation to find out why there is a hole, and that's all.
It's very interesting that I mean the ideas or the opinions that the Estonian government has now stated that it would be an act of humanism for the relatives to recover the ship. That has also gotten a lot of support from the Swedish relatives organizations, those who lost their loved ones. They have said publicly that they do support this line from the Estonian government. It was even stated in Aftonbladet, left-wing mainstream media in Sweden, where the relatives in Sweden totally proclaimed that they are in favor of this idea, even though it has been 26 years and probably the remains are kind of not what they used to be, but they still want to get them up to be able to have a place to go to during that time of the year when the catastrophe happened, a grave to remember their loved ones. So anyone who kind of asks, is it really necessary to bring up the bodies and even the ship 26 years after the catastrophe, I believe they should listen more to the relatives, because they want that, and I think they should have they should have the final decision what should happen to the relatives, to the loved ones, and it's very clear to this day that the Estonian government gets a lot of support from this very important group.
That's why there's like other hypocrisy and double standards, because I know the Swedish government is like the main speaker about the human rights, tolerance, solidarity, all those nice words. But if there's a question about the human rights and the tolerance for the dead people after their life, there is no tolerance anymore. It's a good idea, like to put a 2 meters sarcophage over the dead bodies, and it seems like very like protecting the human rights. So and how is like protecting human rights for the relatives? And there are thousands of relatives finally, because if you have 852 victims, everybody has like the tens of their relatives, and so we can talk about the thousands of people actually, and about their human rights. The government doesn't really care. So and that's what one of the things, like what actually like also the Swedish people have to ask from their own governments, that hey, if you're talking about now the human rights, how you're protecting human rights about your own citizens, and you are treating them like a trash because they are dead. Because even in a law, like I'm sure also in Sweden, like in Estonia, there is a law that how you can treat like dead body, that you have to be respectful, that how you can bury it out, like you have your own rules how you can treat like dead body, and it's sure it's also in Sweden for sure. So doesn't this mean anything? And I think that's a place where like the Swedish average people, even if they are not supporters from the conservative parties or your party, so that's the time like actually to think for the average people in Sweden also, even if they're supporting Green Party or feminists or leftists, that hey, they're also your relatives, and your own government is just like, playing the game over your heads, and just with the double standards, and when they doesn't really care actually, like the dead bodies and their relatives.
Exactly. I mean, it's spot on, because it's exactly the way you explain it here. We have a question here. What about if Sweden and Estonia would share the cost of salvaging the ship? Could that be an idea? And an Estonian here also writes that the cost would be around 100 million euros. So 1 billion Swedish crowns. What's your stance on this? I mean, is the cost an issue here to recover the ship? Would
No.
that be, that's like, an issue?
It's again like the political decision. Like there is like in this case, like it doesn't really matter. Is it like 100, 200 million euros? Money comes, money goes. It's like the government is just like borrowing now, like in the last few months, like the billions of euros. So there is no question about the money, like how to finance that. It's like
I mean, the Swedish government and many other governments around Europe, they don't have any problem to pay billions and billions of euros to the European Union. But when you're talking about 100 million euro to recover a ship with hundreds of dead, then cost suddenly becomes an issue. And I calculated that the cost, even if Sweden would totally on our own take the whole cost, it would be the equal amount of 1 week of payments to the European Union. So it's 1 week of EU tax money from Sweden to the European Union. So it's not very much.
It's only political decision, and that's why, like in this press conference, what was made by our Minister of Interior Affairs, like our minister, he said there on the press conference that the idea of the salvaging the ship, it's not on the table just now because it's very expensive, and we will go for an investigation to have like the videos and all the documents what we try to find from the wreck. I haven't talked with him about this now in last week after this press conference where he said that, but in my own opinion, actually, like there are two main reasons why they really doesn't want to do it. Maybe is maybe they're like financial question, but for me it's not a very good argument. But the second is like they are very against for that in the government from the other parties. It can be like the second reason that you need like the consensus in the government for this kind of decision. But in my opinion, like it could be like actually the only solution, because even if they're making now investigations, they're trying to find new facts. There can be always rumors for the next decades, long years, where there's discussion again that actually maybe they were hiding something, maybe they didn't find all the facts from their car deck. So if you just solve the problem finally, it will be like solved forever.
Exactly. I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of theories what happened to Estonia, and I believe that we will not get the answer until we can recover the whole ship, which was also the line from Martin Helme, that if we recover the ship, we go through all the vehicles, everything on board, we will most likely get an answer on what happened. But before we do that, we will still be in this in this swamp of theories all the time, and not really being able to go forward or continue after this. Because I mean, the Estonia has in Sweden, it's so obvious now when a new finding is revealed that the Swedish people has a sense of not having received enough information, not having received accurate information, and this feeling of having been treated very horribly by our own politicians. It becomes very obvious when any new finding is revealed, because we are kind of reminded that a very sad event, a national mourning in Sweden, was kind of just went forward directly without even trying to investigate it properly. So I think in Sweden, and I'm sure also in Estonia, that people will not be satisfied until they get the answer. What happened to Estonia? Was it an accident, or was it a sinking, or whatever happened? We need to know this to be able to move forward.
Yeah, and there's also the question about the mainstream media in Estonia, how they reacted about the new findings. Well, in the beginning, the first days, it was like the main news in all the newspapers, in the TV news, everywhere. So it was like the full of the Estonia every day. But then, of course, I think like they really didn't push so much for the new investigation because there were so many already persons, the ministers, like the others, like, you know, like the public persons who say like in interviews that, yeah, we have to have a new investigation. There are no doubt for that. So that's why I think it was taken down from the media, like the need for the investigation, because it will come for sure now. But now they are like, after this 1 week, 1.5 weeks, they are now like in the mainstream media publishing more and more opinions. Like the reason for the whole was like some kind of stone. So that's like, you know, it's just like you're trying to change the mind of the public and to prove something new, that say there were actually no like a real submarine or some conflict or some bomb. It was just a stone. So it's like actually one of the most stupid like explanation for the whole, what is like 4 meters with 1.2 meters, and it was like, and this part of the ship was not on the official videos from 1994 and 5. So to believe like this kind of like explanation, why the mainstream media is doing that, I have no idea. But as we know, journalists are very cheap. They are not very expensive to buy.
Yeah, definitely. My friend Per Sefastsson, who is technical responsible now for this stream, he also wrote to me a very good point about the cost of the ship. Just to go back there before we go forward, that Ingvar Carlsson was then the new prime minister of Sweden. He stated directly that he is able to pay any costs possible to recover the ship. Cost is not an issue, he stated just a few days after the catastrophe. And all of a sudden he changed his mind, and was a discussion about costs being too high, even though he said that we're ready to pay whatever it takes to get the ship up. He proclaimed a few days afterwards, and then he changed his mind during the same autumn. And during the tsunami catastrophe in 2004, I believe, 2002 perhaps, in the beginning of the 21st century, almost as many Swedes died as during the Estonia catastrophe. And then they took home all the bodies. And obviously it cost a lot of money, but they took home all the bodies to Sweden, which was the only common thing to do, obviously common sense to do that, but not in Estonia. So, I mean, comparing these two catastrophes, you have almost the same number of dead people, but the government goes forward in totally different ways and explaining totally different theories on what's the humanist act to do. But let's go forward with more questions here from my friend Emil. Is it still possible to salvage the ship?
Yeah, technically, yeah, because like it's only 75-80 meters. It's like similar situation like it was with a Russian submarine Kursk, what sank down. So it was also like to dig it up like from the 80-90 meters. So and it's only 26 years, so the condition is like should be like good enough like to do this kind of technical works. So technically it should be like possible.
It seems seems logical that a ship that is not so very deep and not very old, it's 26 years, should definitely be able to be recovered to the surface. Let's see if we have more questions here in the comment sections. I can ask questions so far. The population of Estonia has and the pressure on the politicians, does it come from the people? Are people angry on Sweden and how Sweden has treated this case, or what's the kind of situation among the general voter?
I think like the people, they're not very angry about Sweden. I think like it's typically like, and like love and hate relation. You mostly you like the people, you like the country, Sweden is like the most popular, like the destination for the tourists before the Christmas, for the cruise ships, you like the country, like the people. But at the same time, of course, I haven't seen any like the polls about stats, but I think like the most of the people doesn't, first of all, they doesn't really trust the official report from 1997. And most of them, I'm very sure, they think that there is some facts what we haven't seen and what is hidden from the Swedish side. So, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that they are very angry about Sweden. But of course, like there were like some polls on the media about with the questions, like in Aftonbladet, there were also like on the first 2 days there was a question that should we have like the new investigation about Estonia, and there were like 80% said yes in Aftonbladet. I was just reading. And it's similar like in Estonia, it was also about 75-80% say yeah, for sure, like we should have a new investigation. And of course, and if you are loudly promising for the new deep investigation to find out so many facts as possible, then there is like the political responsibility, and you can't anymore like take any step back. And especially for our party, like for the liberals, it's easy like to cheat once, twice, and they will get re-elected again. But for our parties, like I think our members and our party voters are like very good control over the party, that what we are doing, and especially what our ministers are doing in the government, and how they are really doing what they are promising. And they have promised now to have a total new investigation, even alone if it's needed. So they have to do it now. So there's no other solution.
That's how democracy should work. If you don't stick to your promises, you should be punished by your own voters. I mean, that's the only way for democracy to actually work. And we would have hoped that the voters would punish Ingvar Carlsson in 1994 when he totally changed his mind after having promised to people in lifelong sorrow that they would recover the bodies, and then all of a sudden he changed his mind. I mean, that's someone who acts that way is not a very sympathetic person. Mm-hmm. But obviously he might have received some kind of comment or some kind of information from other people within or near the Swedish government. Someone wrote about the shadow government in Sweden, and it's very possible that someone told the Swedish government not to go forward with this investigation at that time. So let's see if there are any more questions here. How long time can it take until we know more now? I mean, will there be a still stand now for a few weeks or months, or is it possible that there will be an investigation relatively soon, or some kind of cooperation with Sweden and Finland? What's your best guess here?
They at least they have said like from the governments that we have to do it as soon as possible, so like very fast, and we have to hurry up. But they haven't said exactly the date, like when we are starting, how we are starting. And I think like yesterday, as they decided like to make a proposal to the Finland and Sweden for the cooperation for this investigation project. I don't know how long they will wait for the answer, and when they will answer. So maybe it takes like a week or two. I think it's like so busy thing that they should actually answer like in 1 or 2 weeks maximum. So then you have like agreement from the countries to have cooperation, and then to go forward to find out like the possible ways how to go on. And I think like it was like the one of the duty for we have in Estonia like the Council of State we can call so, who's like responsible for the government working. So, but they're advising, they're making proposals, some ideas, and the government has asked, the proposals how to go forward, like about the expert commission, how to put it together, which persons from where, and they should come out with this proposal for the government like very, very soon. I think this week or next week, something. So if there are some proposals on the table, how to go forward from this state council, or like how we can call that, like, and if we have answer from Finland and Sweden, I think then they know like in a few weeks more like how to go forward now. And of course, like the winter is coming very soon, so now it's at how to find like the right time to go there to the ship, and it depends on the weather. But I really hope that it will be like very fast, like in this year.
What is the most common theory among the Estonian government on what happened during this night in 1994? Are there any theories that have been put forward by ministers more than others?
It's only I think from the government, only our chairman, Martin Helme, Minister of Financial Affairs. He said very beginning after this news came out to the public that he's absolutely sure that it has to be some crash with a strange contact. Is it some kind of like metal thing, or like is it submarine, or is it something else? But it has to be like crash together with something. But we don't know exactly what it can be. It's the only comment for some theory. What it was from Martin Helme. And between
Swedish submarine, some politician in Estonia, was it Martin Helme or someone else who stated that it might be a Swedish submarine?
It was stated actually by, it was the state prosecutor, Margus Kurm, who's now working in the European Control House of Auditors in Luxembourg. The organization who's controlling like all the budgetary expenses in the EU, and he's working there now. But he was the chair and leader of the new investigation group from the Estonian parliament between 2005 and 2009. They were investigating again, like for 4 years, the reasons of the Estonian catastrophe. But the problem was, of course, it was like the parliamentary control. So you can make like the special committee to investigate something, but you don't have any resources really, because if it's apart from the government and you're doing only like the parliamentary control, you don't have like the millions of euros or like some resources to go down there yourself to investigate the wreck. So they were just like making interviews with those persons who were involved to the investigation 1994-5, just reading again all those documents, the final report, and so on, and putting like some kind of own report together. But there were nothing new anymore. But this Margus Kurm were leading this process, and he said already actually 1-2 years ago, it was one in Estonian national TV, it was like the public debate and TV show about Estonia. And he was also there, and he said like loudly out that, well, he was the chair of this parliamentary investigation group, but he knows 100% that how many like the many facts are not in the report because they were not just put it in. It was like there are like the dozens of like the tens of people who are saying that they heard like the 2 times strong metal voice.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I just want to clarify that I don't have any opinion on what happened because it only comes down to guesses. But the Meyerwerft in German shipyard who built the ship, they concluded that the most likely event was explosives. In the investigation in 1997, they concluded that there must have been some kind of explosives. But I mean, it all comes down to theories. So it's not that
That's why it's like really like hard to believe some theories, because now this Margus Kurm said that he thinks that it was a Swedish submarine. Well, for me it's like hard to believe, because like well, if it could be like the Swedish submarine, it could be of course like some kind of attack, because you'd be like insane. Because on stormy nights in the Baltic Sea, you will not risk with your own life in a submarine to just crash into the cruise ship.
Yeah, so it would be very difficult to cover up such an event, because Sweden has around 12 submarines, so you kind of have one submarine completely damaged afterwards and trying to cover up everything. So
even if it could be like the just accident, okay, it can always happen like accident, that okay, then there is no reason to hide it, because then you just actually you are just calling the help resources directly to solve the problem, and to say that oops, the Estonia just crashed into our submarine. So that's why I really don't believe this theory. And this explosive materials, they were also making the tests in 2001, when one American millionaire, Greg Bemis, had this, this private tour with a Jutta Rabe, German journalist. And they went down to Estonia, and they made also like documentary movie, something about that. And but they didn't get finally like 100% proofs that there is a hole in the shipwreck, but there are like, you can see like some kind of the colors on the shipwreck, what you can see that it can be like hole there. And they took like the metal proofs like from the wreck, and they were testing those three labors in US. And in 3 labors, they're saying that this material can change like technically only with the explosive situation. And the 4th labor in the Berlin in Germany, they said that no, it was probably like to do something with material of the technology, and it was like that they were just painted with some color. It was like the funny explanation. So, but only they didn't have any 100% proof that it was explosive materials. But I think it's a thing what is not controlled enough, actually. That what is it somehow possible in some theory that you had explosive materials outside of the ship, exactly on the level of the sea, because this hole is exactly like about 1 meter over the sea level and a few meters under the sea level. So is it, and of course the like the metal of the ship is like just broke to the inside, so it means just power have to came outside to the inside. So if there's explosive materials, it means that it has to be like from the outside. So
which seems very, very strange, to say the least. And it all boils down to speculations on different theories, and this might be an additional evidence that we need to have a new investigation, preferably to recover the whole ship, so that we don't have to sit year in and year out and guess what really happened, because still today the questions are much more than the answers, and by recovering the ship we might get the answers on what happened.
Of course, the best way of always like the best investigators are from the private sector, because the problem is that, as we know, like also like from the TV series or the book, like the Yes, Mr. Minister, or like the sketch movies from the UK, we know always that the governments are never like the best ones to investigate something, because there is always some like the common interest or something to hide. So there's always like there's a risk that they will not investigate something. So that's why from the private sector, who doesn't have any like the personal interest, is the best solution. But the only problem is always like the money. So if there could be like some millionaire who's like the fan of the ships, and to find out some proofs, it could be like the best solution always that you just take the rental ship from the Germany, who's not connected anyway with some kind of like the funny contracts to not go there down. You will just like the hire company, private company, to go down there with the persons, and you are trying to get like the new like proofs of the metal for the labors, and to have the tests to find the explosive materials, to go into the ship, to go to the captain deck. And if you're doing that with a private money and with a private company, nobody can do anything. So only if you have like the Swedish citizens on the ship, so then they will just prosecute you. But otherwise, there is no like problems to do it. Just the only question is like how to find those right persons, like who has like enough resources to spend the money for this project.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the cost is relatively big for a private company, but not for a state. So 100 million euros is a lot for private investigators. We have a question in Estonian here. I put it up here on the screen. Please read it and try to translate for our Swedish viewers.
Sure. There is like Ivar is writing that there is just no information that on the passenger ship they were exporting military weapons or techniques from Russia to Sweden through Estonia. If they who are responsible for this catastrophe doesn't take any responsibility, because they were doing that to get back those stolen things or materials, military materials, is it then somehow possible that finally will be the guilt will be for those who were organizing this transition or export from Russia through Estonia to Sweden, not those persons who are really responsible, who put like some kind of explosive materials? So like it's the meaning of the question, like that finally that the guilt will be like for the persons who are not finally like the real responsible persons who did it finally, but they were just doing, you know, like the black business to export the materials from Russia to Sweden. The first sentence here is 100% true. We have at least facts that they were exporting secret military things to Sweden. Those materials are classified, like always. But we can, of course, imagine that they were not coming from Estonia only. They were coming from Russia or from the old former Soviet Union countries. So that's the fact that they were doing that. So then it's also a fact that there are responsible persons who are doing that. So who are organizers. So there has to be like persons who are still alive. Was it also the reason that 27th of September at night the catastrophe happened because, like, I don't know, the Russian military service or secret service tried to stop this business when they were exporting Russian military equipments to Sweden? It can be, but that's the thing why there is like a need for the very honest investigation to find out the proofs that it was possible. Because if it was so, then all those materials have to be in the ship just now, in the car deck. So and you have to just find it out, and to find it out that was the main reason. If somebody really was planning to take this ship down to the sea, but we don't know it exactly 100%.
We might get an answer. Some of the questions here in the comment section have been answered before, such as a question on Sweden possibly trying to stop any investigation, even though it's on international water. But Estonia says that Sweden is not able to stop this, and Sweden is not able to prosecute Estonian divers and so on. So I will go forward with a few other questions now in the end of this conversation. We have 20 minutes left, and feel free to ask questions also on other topics than Estonia. You are a member of the European Parliament, and one of the biggest political issues that the Union has ever put forward is the fund on 750 billion euro to be borrowed on the private market and then distributed as grants or as loans to the different member states. So 750 billion euro corresponding to 8,000 billion Swedish crowns. So it's a massive package. And you are now working to stop this package, this fund. Please explain what's going on down in Brussels.
Of course, the biggest problem, like in the European Parliament, as it is also in the European Commission, that nobody cares about the facts or the statistics or like the economical basic rules, how the economy is working. They're just like the full house of the ideologists, fanatics who are just trying to push the idea forward only because they dream about the common taxes, the Green Deal, climate saving project. So there is nothing to do with like the logical sense how you are trying to recover your economy. So the official reason why they are borrowing this 750 billion euros is that because the European economy got so many damages thanks for the coronavirus. It's the official reason. So now they are trying to save our economies, that we are taking all together from the European Commission this loan. So the responsible for the loan is European Union, but it means that we are also like all responsible together to pay it back in 30 years from 2028 to 2058. And of course, but nobody hasn't commented in European Commission or in European Parliament from this coalition side, from the socialist parties or EPP, that why you have to take 750 billion euros, the common big huge loan, if there are only few member states like Italy, Greece, Spain, who has a huge problems to take their own loans from the governments. Because most of the countries, like from the especially the Nordic countries, they have no problems to take their own loans from the governments because they have those possibilities. The rates for the interest are low. So Estonia have also like loan now like 3 billion euros or something to invest it to the economy again and to save the economy from this corona crisis. And it's absolutely enough actually. So there is no problem for that. So if the European Commission is now taking a huge loan, and I think it was 390 billion euros is given forward by the loans to the member states, and 360 billion euros with the grants. Just take the money, do whatever you want. Not like, okay, you can do whatever you ever want. You have to invest those money like to the Green Deal, to close your companies what are like too damaging our like the climate and the environment. So you have to invest those loaned money in the billions of euros to the new energy sector. But nobody has asked that, okay, but why just don't you take loan for 100, 200 billion euros and make the private agreement with some member states for who it's too expensive to take their own loans, so they can use like only European Commission, just like the middle institution who will take officially firstly the loan with a good interest rates, like the cheap loan, and then you will like borrow this money from the European Union. So it's directly from the Commission to the member state, not all together. So because like there is nothing to do with like for Sweden or for Estonia or for Finland with a situation that in Italy they can't take with a very good interest rates, very cheap loan. So, but they can solve the problem. Of course, you have to recover like the Italian economy. Of course, we want to have like some solution that all those pensioners will get their pension every month. That's fine, but there's a solution for that. Let's use this European Commission then to solve this like the crisis. But of course, that's only like official reason. The main reason is how to integrate all those financial markets together, because that has been like all the time a problem, like for the European Union, where like all the federalists are screaming that, oh, we are not integrated enough. We have to go forward with a European project. The European project is the main word what they're using, project. Nobody hasn't explained exactly what is the project. what's the meaning of the project. But we have to go forward with that. And of course, one part of the centralizing the financial system is to have a common taxes, like to have your own resources for the European Union. Because just now for the European Union budget, its only resource is what they are paying for the member states directly to the European budget. That's all. So, and the European Union doesn't have any control over the member states' tax policy.
So by taking a massive loan, which the European Union essentially does, 750 billion euro, taking a massive loan, having to repay this loan in the future, the EU can motivate to introduce EU tax.
Yeah.
Is that the idea?
That's the thing. And now, like in the European Parliament, most of the members in the European Parliament, they have promised to block the new long-term budget, 2021 to 2027, if there are not enough new taxes, EU taxes. So that's why now, like the European Council, like the heads of the member states, prime ministers, and the European Commission and the European Parliament have agreed that, okay, European Parliament will give the green light for the long-term budget, because from the next year, it will be like the plastic tax. Of course, officially, most of the member states and the governments are saying that it's not a tax, but in fact, it's hidden tax. Yeah. So it's a new component, how you have to calculate the amount of the money what you have to pay to the EU budget. So they are not collecting this plastic tax directly from the EU level. They are just collecting this money directly from the national member states' budget, because they have to now calculate that every kilogram of the plastic what is not used again, you have to pay 80 cents. So it means like the 1 ton, 1,000 kilograms of the not again used plastic is 800 euros. So for Estonia, for the next year, it's going to be about 30 to 35 million euros. But of course, where the money comes from, two possibilities. You are just taking it from some other sectors, so you will not raise the pensions for next 2 or 3 years, or the price will go finally to the average people who will just pay this price and the final prices in the shop. Yeah. So if you want to buy a Coca-Cola, okay, just now it's €1, then it's 1.20. So the money has to come from somewhere. And the only reason is the main reason is not like to save the world. Of course, that's the main ideology. We need plastic tax because we have to reduce the plastic and we have to control that. But the main reason is how to get money. Yeah. And now they have like calculated that officially it's not tax, but so it's hidden tax to the member states. But it's not enough in 30 years to pay back 750 billion euros. So, and there are two other ideas what they are going forward to push, especially Germany is pushing very hard as they are president of the country that's now in the EU. And they are just going forward with pressure to have also like the big digital companies tax, like Google, Facebook. So it's only one step forward to the average company tax in the EU. So it means that, if you're big enough, then you have to pay like the EU tax directly to the EU budget. So there's no difference anymore, like for the companies to go to Estonia or Sweden or Cyprus, because it's like the same tax. So like the local member states are just losing their rights to get like other companies to come to their own country to produce like the new workplaces, to get like the tax money to your own budget. It's lost. And the third is like the CO2. Of course, to save the world, you have to cut down all those bad things that are coming out from the cars and the industry. So we have to pay the tax of the CO2.
It's interesting, as we always save the world by paying more taxes to the government. It's always a solution on different problems in this world. The government needs more taxes.
That's the funny thing, because like yesterday morning we had a discussion like in the European Parliament here, when the commissioner from the European Commission, he was really worrying about this economic crisis what we have in the EU. We are losing our position globally. We are losing, comparing with China, Russia, and US. We are losing our position. We have to get stronger. We need more unity. The unemployment rate is rising and rising. In Spain, like 40% of the young people are unemployed. We have to work with that. We need like more work. Oh, really? And then I had my speech only 1.5 minutes. I just add like, there is no logic. You are talking about like that we are losing our economical power in the world. Maybe it's like thanks for the over regulations. Maybe it's like thanks for the over bureaucracy what we have in the EU. So there is actually no point for the many companies like actually to grow anymore because it's not useful anymore. Second thing, you are trying to recover the economy and organize the new workplaces, but you're just planning about the new taxes. Really? So like there's no economy in the world what will grow with the new taxes. You're just damaging that. So with the new tax system. And the third, you are taking the huge loan, 750 billion euros, and you have no idea how to pay it back because there is no agreement yet, like in the EU. So, and then you're talking about like how to restore our position in the world globally in the economy as an economical power. You're just like in 20, 30 years on the position like there's an India. Even they are bigger and stronger today.
Yep. Yeah. But do you think that this fund now that the EU has proposed, will it? I mean, it has been approved in the European Council, but it will also be discussed and decided upon in the European Parliament, where you're a member. So when are you taking the final decision on this fund?
It should come as soon as possible. I think not in the end of October, maybe like in November session, because it's gonna be very like to hurry up because it has to go like to the national parliaments. And I asked last month and a half ago in Estonia from the Chancellor of Justice, who has this like the control position of our constitutional rights, and it was like the question about the new plastic tax and this like about the idea of the huge loan, that how it's connected with our constitution. Does it go too far? And should we have like maybe a referendum over that if it goes too far with federalization? And well, at least she answered officially that this topic has to be discussed like in the national parliament, because we have no idea that which kind of expenses it will produce in next 10-20 years. So there is an EU mandate from the national parliament, and it will go like in most of the national parliaments. And if it's agreed in the national parliament, I hope it doesn't, but if it's agreed, probably it will be, then it's again possible to go with this decision to the highest court in Estonia to ask like the control over the constitution, that how it's connected with the constitution, because 2003 when we had a referendum shown with the EU, it was change of the constitution, and the people were voting that do you support to change the constitution paragraph 1, like the wording is that we are members in the EU if we are following the basic values of our constitution, and it's the sovereignty, national state, national language, culture. And 2012, the highest court in Estonia decided it was the question about the like the European stability mechanism, where we are saving the Greece, and when we were all borrowing the money together and just were giving to the German banks to save the Greece. So and it was like the decision of the court that if it goes finally the EU to change and open the treaties of the EU for the federalization, like for the new common taxes, like even more rights to giving away to the EU from the member states, there is need for a new referendum to ask from the people that how far you want to go. If you say, yeah, it's fine, we are absolutely fine and satisfied if the EU will decide more and more every day of our lives, okay, go ahead. I will probably move like away from the Europe then, Australia or New Zealand. But you have to have a right to say which kind of...
I mean, you would never get that result in a referendum because the European peoples do not want to be ruled by Brussels, and that's why we very seldom have any referendums on this. I mean, this enormous fund that they're proposing now, it would be very easy to have referendums about it. Do you want the European Union to borrow 750 billion euro? And most people would say no to that. And that's why, I mean, you have to understand, I know that you argued about this also, that if you have a referendum, for example, like Sweden had in 1994, actually just after the Estonia catastrophe, where you are promised certain things and you're also promised certain other things relating to your sovereignty. For example, that this and that would be sovereign and this and that would be on the EU level. If after a few years the European Union breaks this promise, it means that this referendum is not valid anymore. It must be tested again if this mandate is valid, because if you pass a threshold, obviously you cannot back it up by the referendum that you had in 1994. And it's the same with the Estonian referendum, I'm sure, as well, because you were not informed by the European Union, neither were we in Sweden, exactly how much of, let's say, imperial plans that they had for this union. So I think it's very, it's only common sense that Swedes and Estonians and other people would be able to say in a referendum what they think about, not only about whether to be an EU member or not. I mean, I'm totally for leaving the European Union, but it would be very easy to also test in referendums main issues that they are proposing, such as this fund.
Absolutely, because like the always like the problem, like also like in Estonia, is that the most of the people doesn't agree. I ordered a poll last December, because, you know, at least in Parliament there are resources for the parliamentary work, and I spent also like some money like for the poll and to ask like to support like the more integrated and federalized financial policy. About 62-63% said no, we don't support that, and even like 65% with a higher education person said no. So it's normally, you know, like it's like all the liberals and the leftists will say that no, yeah, those supporters, you know, for the national interest and sovereignty, and does not understand like the global interest what we have in the EU, they are undereducated, they doesn't know anything. Well, in this poll we say that actually with the higher education people doesn't really very understand that what is the result of the federalized financial system if you go forward with that. And there are also questions that do you support like EU as a common state, as a federalization? Like 65% say no, we don't support that idea. And do you support common migration policy? No. But then it's the question: do you support to be member in the EU? Then it's like 75% yes, we support. And also like typical historical problems, because still too many people are believing that the EU is like the backyard for our protection against Russia. And doesn't really like understand yet very well but actually the big boys from the Western Europe are playing over our heads. So how you can support for the protection from the EU and European Commission against Russia, if first of all EU is not the military union, it's the NATO. What is the main cooperation union for us? It's not the EU, it's the economical union. And secondly, how you can trust the partners and allies in the EU if they are just making deals with Russia themselves to have like Nord Stream 2 or like the cheap gas, or actually to break the promises what they have done like 2008 or 14, thanks for the Georgian and Ukrainian wars. And that's the thing what the people doesn't really understand yet very well, that they have cheated. They have really cheated them, and with the lies that, oh, it's like a huge protection. No, it's not anymore. Actually, it's like it's getting more and more like an enemy, what will actually destroy your protection and self-sovereignty. So, but after hopefully it changes, because like that's the part of the work, you know, to change the mind of the people to understand logically what is the EU really, like what is the real meaning of the EU. Because like this house is crazy, like in the process, like they are just the fanatics who are screaming every day that the member states are too selfish, nationalist, and they are thinking about their own interest, and they're not thinking about the European project because they didn't have any agreement in the European Council. And then I'm just saying against, I'm sorry, but of course, until we have a free free elections and democracy in the member states. Of course, the people of Latvia will vote for Latvian parties who will protect the Latvian voters and the people of Latvia. Logical. It doesn't have to protect like the interest of the Greece people. That's for the Greece government. But those fanatics here just like ignore the facts.
I mean, my point of view is that a small nation like Sweden or Estonia, it's very naive to put your independence and essentially your future in the hands of a great power. And great powers like Russia, the United States, China, or the European Union, which is every day trying to become more and more a great power and an empire, actually, it's very naive to put your own destiny in the hands of great powers, because they do not support the interests of small nations. Small nations for them are like satellite states. So for any small nation, you have to be realistic and understand that that great powers, obviously you should cooperate with them. You should have good diplomatic cooperation, in my opinion, but you should not have a naive trust in them, because the only ones you can trust are essentially yourself as a nation.
Exactly.
Everything else is completely naive. We are finishing this discussion. I just want to say thank you so much, Jaak, for having been with us today and explained many of the things that have happened and how the things have been discussed in Estonia. You answered a lot of questions here by the viewers. And it's so great that Alternative for Sweden has this good partner in EKRE, because I can so much feel that there is a friendship not only between our two nations, but also between our two parties. You were joining us in Copenhagen in 2019, which was really appreciated among our members. And I sincerely hope that you want to visit Sweden and Stockholm in 2022 when we have the next election campaign. So from me and from the members of Alternative for Sweden, thank you so much for helping out and for being in this discussion.
Tack för det var jättetrevligt i alla fall, så att jag är ganska ledsen att vi har bara så på engelska språk här, men jag tror att vi ska träffa ganska snart, och när du kommer till Bryssel här så vi ska ha en öl här, så att det är en bästa sak här i Belgien faktiskt som har.
Precis. Jag har ju varit i Belgien många gånger tidigare och träffat Vlaams Belang, och de är ju också med i identitet- och demokratigruppen. Tom van Grieken, som jag hade bra samarbete med när jag var förbundsordförande för Sverigedemokraternas ungdomsförbund. Så att jag är väl medveten om att Belgien har väldigt bra öl. Så jag ser fram emot att ta en öl med dig i Belgien. Även i Tallinn träffades vi ju också i våras när du tillsammans med Marine Le Pen presenterade identitet- och demokratis plan för EU-valet. Så det var en stor ära att få flyga till Tallinn under dagen mitt i min turné som jag hade i Sverige då. För att få träffa dig och Marine Le Pen, Sannfinländarna och många andra partier. En väldigt stor dag för mig personligen, och framförallt så gav det ju väldigt mycket energi till Alternativ för Sveriges medlemmar att få se att Alternativ för Sverige är representerade i de här sammanhangen, de här europeiska sammanhangen. Så att det var väldigt uppskattat att vara i Tallinn här i maj förra året var det då.
Ja, när det behöver, bara så att vi kan komma alltid till Sverige, därför att det är ganska bra exempel att se vad händer i Malmö när du går fram med politik i Europa med migration. Så att när du är där, du bara ring oss så vi ska komma dit att ha en vår grupp.
Vi ser fram emot att välkomna dig till Stockholm, Göteborg, Malmö eller någon annan svensk stad. Och vi kommer att hålla en turné över hela landet nästa valrörelse. Men vi håller kontakten, du och jag, Jaak. Så stort tack för att du var med idag. And I also want to say thank you to all the Estonians who followed our live stream. Thank you so much for asking questions. And I hope to visit your great country again in the future, perhaps in some election campaign for EKRE to help you out a little bit. It's always been a true pleasure from my side to meet with Jaak and also with Martin Helme in London 1 year ago. So I hope that the bonds between our two parties will become even stronger in the future. But I'm finished for now, and you can see this live stream also afterwards. Anyone who has joined this live stream after it started, obviously you can play it from the beginning because it's up on Alternative for Sweden's social media, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. So please watch the whole live stream if you believe that you have not gotten enough answers. And for those questions that have not been answered, please send me a message on my Facebook site, my political Facebook page, and I will be happy to answer them. I'm sure Jaak has the same opinion and that he'll be happy to answer any questions from any Swedish Alternative for Sweden members. Så tack så mycket för detta. And tervedex, is it cheers or is it thank you? Or what is it?
It's like a cheers, and for the F it means like both things. Tervisex.
Tervedex, yeah. Yeah, skål. Okay, that's the important word to know when I come to Estonia. Okay. Thank you so much. Tack så mycket.
Tack så mycket. Hej då.
Tack.